see some very preliminary plans that we have under development. These are very much a first draft of a plan. And the genesis of the plan is, many of you know, we have been working for some time to develop more off-street parking for the facility, and the need for off-street parking has never been stronger than it is now, because the snow ban now applies to both sides of Regent Street. So even during the day when it is not snowing, but the city has already pulled the plug, our visitors and some of our staff have no place to park whatsoever. We close when it snows, but it's those times when it's thinking about snowing, or they're thinking about snowing. And I understand that the city wants to not have cars abandoned on the major roadways, but Regent Street is included in that snow ban. And the reason it ever went up, it was declared an essential street, is because it provides the fire department access to our building. So, I mean, I understand the need to keep Regent Street clear, but unless we just drive around the block for the rest of the afternoon, we really don't have a place to park. Bob Longdon is here, and I wanted to start the evening out with Bob kind of giving us a little historical perspective about what the city and the Historical Commission had approved in the past about the parking, and how you have advised us to go forward, starting with a meeting of the neighbors and going through the permitting process.
Well, thank you, Ellen. I'm Bob Longdon. I'm an attorney with Dowditch & Dewey in Worcester, and I'm proud to represent the Antiquarian Society. And I represented them previously.
Bob, if you come over here, they'll
right.
capture you on camera, and we're going to put this on our website, so you don't mind going on the record, do you?
No. You may recall that in 2008, 2009, the Antiquarian Society came forward with plans to add additional parking for the benefit of the Goddard Daniels house. And what was proposed at that time was to create a parking lot containing approximately 17 spaces on the property at 90 Park Avenue. That creation of that parking area was not going to result in the demolition of the building at 90 Park Avenue at that time. It rather was going to create parking in the areas adjacent to the building that would serve the Goddard Daniels house. And that was part of a more comprehensive plan that also took into consideration adding a connection between the Goddard Daniels house and the carriage house, and also adding 5 additional on-site spaces over here in the area along the driveway entering into the Goddard Daniels house. And at that time, those plans, as the new plans, will required the review and approval by both the Planning Board of the City of Worcester, as well as by the Historical Commission, because the property at the Goddard Daniels house, as we know, is located within the Montvale Local Historic District. And the renovations to the house, the modifications to the site required Historic Commission approval, which was obtained at that time. The parking spaces down on 90 Park Avenue by themselves did not require Historical Commission approval, because that particular property is, most of it is not within the district. There is a small rectangular piece or square piece of property that is within the district adjacent to 90 Park Avenue. So that modification, that parking plan was approved by both the Historical Commission and by the Worcester Planning Board. Since that time, there has been consideration about modifying that program and modifying that plan, and what has come out of those considerations is the plan that you see before you tonight, which is a less intensive program than the program that was approved back in 2009. This one basically calls for the creation of a parking area, off-street parking area on the site at 90 Park Avenue, in conjunction with the demolition of the building at that site, and also takes into consideration the possibility of future expansion of that parking area or the creation of, or erection of a new building at that site, if I'm correct.
We're keeping our options open.
Yeah. So those options have not been finalized at this point. So what we're really talking about is an enhanced parking area at the site of 90 Park Avenue. Like the modifications that were proposed back in 2008-2009, these particular modifications will require the approval of both the planning board, which has the authority to approve parking plans in the city of Worcester for off-street parking lots of the size that is contemplated here, as well as the historical commission, because as I mentioned, there's a rectangular piece of property at 90 that is part of the property adjacent to 90 Park Avenue that is included in this plan, small piece, about 2,500 square feet, that is within the Montvale Local Historic District and therefore is under the jurisdiction of the Historical Commission. But we would be going before those boards sometime in the spring. But in considering how we would move forward with these plans, the Antiquarian Society, knowing the interest of the Montvale neighborhood in any modifications to this particular site, knowing the interest of the neighborhood in prior modifications that were proposed and approved, felt that the best way to proceed was to come before the neighborhood at the very beginning of the process to explain these plans and explain what is included in the program to those who would have the most interest in it before any plans are filed with the city, before any applications are filed with any of the boards, and before, frankly, the society goes before anyone else to talk about this. So your input with regard to what is being proposed is welcome. We're here to answer any questions you might have with regard to this design. We have with us the landscape architect who has also designed the enhanced landscaping that you see on the plans before you. But
That's
do you want to add anything else?
I just want to add one bit of clarification for those who maybe haven't been through the war, the whole cycle of all of this. In 2008 and 9, when we were looking for a place to put the parking lot and the objection to the tennis court was sustained, the compromise that the manager worked out with the Historic Commission and the neighbors was that we would cut down this grove of trees, basically, and put the parking lot in the historic district on the property of 185 Salisbury. It's adjacent to 90 Park Avenue, but the plan that was actually approved had the parking in the historic district. And throughout those negotiations, he kept saying to me, "Can't you buy 90 Park Avenue?" And I'm like, "Mrs. Lambert doesn't want to sell." And then, guess what? Mrs. Lambert changed her mind. So we bought the property, and that gave us the opportunity to rethink this. But what we really wanted to do is to rethink our entire campus, how the buildings relate to each other, how we travel from one building to the other. And we've had two consultants, one that's worked with us programmatically about understanding the spaces that we need, and then Kim Ahern, who has worked with us, bringing a great respect for the historical nature of the property and a great creativity and knowledge of plant materials, and also an understanding that we are not full-time horticulturalists ourselves, but we have her expertise. And we want you to, Kim's going to kind of walk through, this is not at a very detailed level, right? It's very conceptual. So it's really the time to give your thoughts, because it's not like move that tree 2 inches. I mean, the trees haven't been placed yet. It's just really the ideas that Kim's going to explicate for us. So Kim?
Yeah, sure. I've talked to quite a few of you already tonight, and I've heard a lot of good new ideas. So actually it's already worked, and really nice to have that input from neighbors, people that really live here. I feel sometimes like I live here. I've been coming to many site visits.
Except every time Kim visits, it rains.
It rains. I'm sorry about that.
She takes new meeting to rainmaker.
Kim, would you mind stepping over here so those who...
I'm a little little more camera shy than attorneys are, but okay. But really, I don't have to tell you, it's a really beautiful piece of property. It's a wonderful neighborhood. And I think that really what we're trying to do, to sum it up, is really just bring it back to the real spirit that it has had in the past, give it a facelift, so to speak. The bones of the property are really there. There are a few things. Well, first of all, we went and looked at the historic photos and really wanted to bring the historic presence back and open up. The plant material is very overgrown. It's kind of shrouding these beautiful buildings, and we want people to be able to see it and open up to the neighborhood. So part of the design shows that, really, about the opening up back to the historic nature of it. One thing we talked about tonight was the edges of the property, how the property right now tends in many places just to spill out onto the street. So we really want to hold that edge in and be sort of, proud of the space. So there's some moves on the master plan to help that with edging, plant material, curbing, that sort of thing. The other big piece too is kind of a missed opportunity about outdoor space and gathering spaces. There's some wonderful opportunities that haven't been really built up yet, and certainly could be with very little effort. And I think that, in the good weather, it'd be wonderful to have a place where there are a couple of benches and inviting spaces for people in the neighborhood and the scholars here to really talk, interact, and or just read a book.
And preferably on the quiet side of our properties, not on the speedway side.
On the street side, that's right. Yeah. So if you look at the master plan, you'll see some areas like that. So really, it's the big picture, pulling the properties together, making them read more as a whole. And then within that, though, looking at how to arrange space and where can people gather, how can you walk through. We've made some new connections between the proposed parking lot coming across in front of this building and then over to the library.
Here, we can park.
There it is.
Well, she's on camera.
There you go.
I'll
Thanks.
the
You
parking
want to
lot
switch
across
places?
here.
I can do
No,
that.
well, you keep talking and I'll point.
But these pathways, are fairly well thought out. Of course, it's a large scale. We need to really break it down before it would ever be built. But it does link uses together, it creates opportunities for people to explore, maybe sculpture along the way, or place, interesting plant material, give a walking path for some exercise, all kinds of things. I'll talk about two safety issues, and one is the crosswalks that we're proposing.
This one is existing, and the do not block the intersection should keep this area clear, but as we all know, that doesn't happen.
Right, so we're taking a move from WPI down the street and their brick crosswalks and trying to think about that happening up here to slow people down, have them stop when pedestrians are trying to cross.
And this is about where parking, the cars should stop. But as you know, they block the intersection, and we hope that this would be a clearer signal to them.
Right. I think it will slow them down. The other, we have some early action items like fixing the fence along Montvale. It's really a stunning fence. It just is in disrepair. So that needs to be fixed. We've already done some early action items which show up on the boards. Andy already took down the shrubs at the corner. So we're trying to, open up, but create edges at the same time. So there's a little balance going on.
You want to talk about the changes proposed on this side of the street as well?
Sure. In front of the library, the existing Zelkovas were planted after the elms probably came down. And they're really enclosing that whole front facade. You can't see any of the beautiful buildings. So we're proposing that we keep the elms that are there, but take out the Zelkovas So again, the building will breathe, everybody will get to see that beautiful facade, and then take some more interesting plant materials off to the side and really simplify it. There's kind of a jumble, there are a lot of overgrown rhododendrons and viburnums and this and that. Pare it right down, let's get very simple, and back to just a low ground cover and a beautiful flowering trees flanking that entrance. And then in the front, everybody knows the parking area there. It's kind of temporary. The marble chips don't really fit in with the historic nature of the building. So we've got a small redesign there where we bring the granite curbing back and around the parking, where the parking area is, and then bringing granite benches in there. So it's a very subtle gathering space. It doesn't scream at you, you know, we want a lot of people here, but when people want to come and sit, it's an inviting spot. And it's really secondary to the beautiful facade of the building. And then, moving further down, there's another missed opportunity which we've developed. And again, these are places that are right now just very schematic. Everything would need to be blown up and really designed. But we've suggested an outdoor seating area, gathering spot right over there where Ellen's pointing. And that would be a nice spot with the fellows that live in the house next door. As they come to the library, there's an outdoor space now for them, if this were developed in this way.
It also is the fact that, as some of you may know, for many years we've had a picnic bench in this little niche, and this was utilized more when this was more heavily trafficked by our staff. But because of the noise from Park Avenue, you could barely hear yourself think. So the idea of an outdoor space that's for staff as well as fellows is attractive.
Right, and I should probably say too that the materials that we're thinking of using would be things like granite, bluestone, really timeless materials, staying away from probably timber edging and that sort of thing that doesn't really fit the historic nature of the building, nor does it really stand the test of time. So I think if we're going to do it, we're going to do it right. Really look for the simple but beautiful materials.
And these street trees, I think, are a nice addition, especially in Worcester where we've lost so many of the street trees. These would be on our property, not on the park, the median strip.
Right, there's a pretty strict list, as you all know, I'm sure, in Worcester of what you can and can't plant, and we've been sensitive to that. And so the final planting plan would reflect, of course, what's allowed in the city.
We've also been pleased to work with Kim because she has been all over our properties looking for plants that aren't where they should be, but are perfectly lovely plants. And we are going to set up a hospital for them to recuperate in after they've been dug up and wait their new home as other parts of the plan are developed.
Right, we have identified a lot of places where when we take out those overgrown rhododendrons, we have a spot for them to go to help with some erosion problems and things like that.
Like here.
Right over there especially. Right.
You want to talk about the approach to this building?
But right in there, yes. This entering into this building right now, it's just sort of, you come in from the main street, it's asphalt, and then you come up into this beautiful marble sort of circular area. So to do that justice, we've really kind of looked at maybe taking up the asphalt, making it a brick court, pushing back. We can't really make it into a big parking lot. There's a lot of ledge and constraints there. But bringing it back just a bit, maybe with some granite curbing there, but making it feel like more of an entry court than just a service entrance, which it really is not. It's main entrance now of the building. We want it to feel that way.
And this being a master plan that will be executed in phases over, say, 5, 10 years, you know, we are looking at, with an engineer, as to making this historic car barn, if you will, into a storage facility for us that can structurally take weight that it can't currently take. And it would retain its exterior appearance, but would be more functional for our uses. So this would be kind of the back of the house and pretty up the front of the house, so to speak, and also provide ways to get up into this courtyard area at Montville Cottage, which is sometimes used for parties now, but with the reconstruction of the stone fence, we hope will be even more useful and attractive. And also this lower courtyard, which those who have tried to use it for social spaces say the mosquitoes get there first, but we'll take care of that. And then Kim, you want to talk about the coming back down this way?
Yes, coming back through there, if anyone's ever walked there, it's another missed opportunity. That's where Andy puts all the grass clippings and leaves and so forth. And it really is an important connection between spaces. So what we've done is in the new plan, suggesting, we're still working with the engineers, but integrating with the new parking area a storage unit, like a dumpster, but something that'll be closed off so it won't look like a dumpster. But that's where all his grass clippings, all of leaves, everything will go in there and then be taken out either once a week or depending on the season as needed. And that opens up an opportunity to develop that as maybe even a azalea walk, and maybe some of the plants that we've taken out from other places can go in there. So it's a place, yes, it's a little bit of a slope, but it'll be a meandering kind of garden, shady garden path. So we're trying to take areas that right now are not the nicest looking and turning them completely on their head and saying, okay, let's make this really nice. Let's turn it into something, a place you want to be rather than a place you're trying to screen out with a fence or something. Let's see what it really can be.
There's several large trees on this property that are at their life's end and need to come down, but we're replacing them with smaller scale trees that are more appropriate to the dimensions of the building. And then the parking lot, we have asked to be designed so that it would be, it would keep the Copper Beech for the time being. We have had 2 arborists examine the Copper Beech. One says it could go any day, and one says she's healthy, you know. So rather than continue to just spend money on arborists who give us conflicting opinions, we've decided to let the Copper Beech tell us when she's ready to go, and to have them design the infrastructure for the parking lot so that at least initially this part would not be built, and only, you know, when the time comes would we consider adding this additional. But as Bob said, there might be some small structure that could be put there as well. But we're trying to keep the parking away from, you know, being the first thing that you see when you come in. And with landscaping, with Kim's help, we hope to do that as well. So as I say, this is, and just Kim, could you just say something about your ideas here for this green area?
Sure.
This is where the parking lot would have been, right here.
Right. We're, in this plan, we retain all the evergreens in that big area there. One of the first times I ever came to the property, I went onto the front porch and looked out and noticed that if there were probably shrubs as that existing row there, if something like that were moved closer to the road, you could actually screen out from the porch, screen out all the cars and the asphalt and look over and see the pond. You'd still hear the cars, but it would be a much nicer experience. And then it really kind of gives you an opportunity to nestle that lower pathway right against those plant materials, and that could be really fun. That could be grasses and, as I said before, maybe some sculpture, but really it gives another opportunity for kind of a neat experience there.
And Kim has also, we've talked about the building committees. One of our goals was to sort of coordinate the look of the properties with discrete but coordinated signage. And you know, we have some of, you know, we've attempted to do that, but over the years this orange faded a different color than this one, and we've gotten kind of out of sync a little bit. So Kim's aesthetic eye is greatly appreciated there as well. But we imagine a walkable set of properties that are not just, you know, drive-by, but actually to be enjoyed and meandered through a little bit more than is currently the case. And we think that that's more in keeping with the neighborhood of walkable residential properties. And we hope that we can provide more of an interaction with the uses of our spaces and those of the neighborhood. So that's our presentation, and I think coming up and asking Kim and making your suggestions, we really are interested in your suggestions, and Kim is a good one for taking good ideas and incorporating them. So thank you for your attention.